Presentation of some recent work which we have been doing, very capably led by our project manager, Tim Parker. Tim, we're glad to see you back. Hope the antidepressants are working. And I am here as the officer in charge of this account to present to you this work, which has done some detailed examination of some very important data, and together to tease out some of the true insights which our project team have come up with in this presentation, working in close collaboration, of course, with your project team. Now, as I said, just to introduce myself, I arrived here last night just in time for an excellent dinner, and I'm here giving a presentation of some information, as all officers in charge do, of which I have no understanding at all, having done it well. But you won't mind a bit then if I present you with my back a lot of the time, because you and I are reading these slides for the first time, both of us. So we asked a number of questions. And the first question that we asked was, how many organizations have you worked for since leaving Index? Now, actually, I'd lie to you. This wasn't the first question that we asked. The first question we asked was, what is your name? But since we had a statistically significant 75% don't knows on that, we decided to leave that out. I should mention, by the way, that the methodology of this is really important. For those of you who are statisticians, you will realize, of course, that we are using the methodology which was pioneered by two of our partners, George Dewey of our New York office, and Yoko Chitu of our Tokyo office, and the Dewey Chitu model has been really well understood. Because, as you will all know, this is where this model is very sophisticated statistics. You will see that the t-squares and the covariances are kept as an adjuvants well within a 3.5 standard deviation. Truly astonishing to see. Now, the first question is, you will see we have a normal distribution here. Many of you will recognize that that's something on its side. And we go all the way from some who have been, shall we say, somewhat prolific or even promiscuous in the number of jobs they've had, to some truly boring people who haven't done anything else. How many times have you been out of work? A number of people lied on this. One person said he'd been out of work, he or she had been out of work more than 5 times, but the majority of people have not been out of work for about 50% have not been out of work. But a number of them are rather quibbling about what the definition of work is. We were interested in how those who left Index and then went straight into the dot-com bust have survived it, and we were interested to see how many of them, of the group that we were working with, which is a statistically significant sample, whose size I've totally forgotten, how many of them, in fact, had gone through and had a bad experience. And we noticed that most of the group avoided the dot-com bust, and very few of them made any money which we thought was also important. One person said that he made out like a bandit, and I think I know who he is. And when he walks in here, he's going to buy all the drinks. How much money do you lose in the dot-com bust? Again, we didn't really do anything. Somebody said they'd done very well on that, but by and large, we missed the dot-com bust. Now, what is the employment status at the moment? If you add together those who are working full-time and those who are saying they're working part-time, you'll see it's a substantial majority. There are some people who confess to being unemployed. Others, of course, call themselves consultants while they are unemployed. And we do like working for ourselves, 41.5%, but unfortunately 58% of us are working for somebody else. And we continue, many of us, to work in the consulting business. About 45% are continuing to work in the consulting business. Others have gone out, I'm glad to say, and got a real job where hopefully they're making some contribution to society. This leads us immediately to this slide. The relevance of which will be immediately apparent to you. I pulled it out yesterday and it worked. I have to tell you, this slide has been part of our company policy. It's included in every presentation since 1991. There are very few people left around who can understand what the hell it says, and I'm going to try right now. So the next part was, what did you like about Index? Well, it was interesting to see that we like ourselves. We like our colleagues. And what we liked least was something called CSC and resort meetings done by research and advisory. Very low indeed. What did you like? What did you like least? Sorry, the previous one was what did you like most? I'm not reading out of the back of my head very well. What did you like least? It reflects that. it's interesting to note that there's 20% here. The thing they liked least was the management team. Jim Champy is not returning phone calls, so I have no further enlightenment on that. What do you think contributed the most to making Index successful? Who do you think contributed most to making Index successful? Now, this could be slightly controversial. I called Garrity and I said, Garrity, they've forgotten us. He planned to get on the next plane, but as I just told him, unfortunately he's still stuck in the airport and unable to defend himself. Why somebody said Mike Hammer is completely beyond my understanding. But I suppose the others are all right. Where's Wade? Is he coming in here? No, he's carrying Wade.
He's buying the drinks when he does.
Since leaving Index, have you worked for a company that you thought was better than Index? Absolutely not. We're very clear about that. We really like ourselves. And what did you take away from Index that helped you most in your subsequent career? There's some interesting replies here, such as, smart people can do stupid things, but their explanations generally sound better. It's an interesting list. One and the other is, I took away the ability to work with big egos. But the one I like most of all, I think, is the inspirational one at the bottom, the Eagle Award we were given by Bang when we made plan in 1994. It is a source of continuing inspiration. So now we thought we'd turn to your politics, and the group demonstrate clear democratic leanings here. As to the way they voted in the last election. There's a very interesting small slice here of 4%, which is worth further investigation. And in fact, that's a Marxist, but I don't know who it is.
Where's Stanowitz?
Could be the 4%. And it's interesting to note that when we asked what you're going to vote in the next election, that other has grown to 22%. So we see a very interesting demographic trend here, where there are certainly a few Republican voters, about the same number of Democratic voters, and the rest say to hell with both of you. How many times have you been married since leaving Index? Now, we did ask some other questions about extramarital relationships, but unfortunately we received no good data on that. And so this is actually quite boring. How many new relationships have you had since leaving Index? This could have been interesting. And this person up here with more than 5 turns out to be the same person who lost a lot of money in the dot-com bust and votes Marxist. But there you go. How many children do you have? Well, that's sort of statistically interesting. And it's interesting to note, actually, that Democrats, those of the group who say they prefer the Democratic Party, they're actually more loyal. They're more likely to be married, more likely to still be married, and less likely to have married in the interim, and so on. Now, this is the kind of insight that I've been talking about. It's really important for you in your company to understand the people with whom we have worked in this very important and landmark study. Also, if you look at the Republicans, the Republican outindexes have more children.
What does that mean?
There is a correlation to be sought there, which will be a sensitive piece of work. How many times have you moved since leaving Index? Well, once or twice, mostly. Do you own an iPhone? That's really important. Because part of the work that we do to gain some insight into the inner workings of a sample group is to understand the way in which their minds work, particularly with respect to the technology, which is so important. So we were somewhat disappointed to find that only 4% owned an iPhone. A larger slice own a personal mobile device, a BlackBerry or whatever. So there is hope, and we would like to suggest to you for our next piece of work, on which we'll be submitting a proposal next week, that we take a close look at this, because you see what's really important is to understand amongst your people how many of them feel that they are product innovators and truly early adopters of the technology, how many of them just worry about cost, and how many are just trying to screw the customer. Favorite vacation spot seems to spread across the globe, because we are, after all, a very global people. Italy ranks very high here. I'm very interested in that. We never had an office in Italy, to the best of my knowledge. It must have something to do with the food. What is the place you've always wanted to vacation but have not yet been to? Again, there's quite a spread here. I'm not sure who said Garrity. I'm not sure